Hello and welcome to prompt number 129. If you missed prompt number 128, it was actually a live stream last week, so you may have missed it. It's a long one, but it might be a fun little something to put in the background while you draw. Anyways, let's get into this prompt. Is this the right one? It is. Okay, we have gorilla and fire truck. All right, here we go. After listening back to how I said gorilla, I couldn't stop laughing because it just sounded like my southern slur was coming out so much. I do say gorilla more than I do say gorilla, but when I do get excited, that's when my southern slur comes out. Anyway, I'm off topic. Let's talk about the sketches. So gorillas are really interesting to draw. They are just very shapely and really fun to exaggerate. They have that little belly that hangs down. Their head and their butt angle comes together. So interesting. Their little legs, their long arms, they have such a fun face to exaggerate. They look angry, but they're not, but they're silly looking. There's just so many shapes to a gorilla that are so much fun to exaggerate. I was kind of scared going into this one, obviously because there's a car involved, but I got really excited because exaggerating the gorilla just was so much fun. It took over the fear of the car. So I started off by just drawing a gorilla, a car, and then I had to start thinking of fun ideas. So I drew a gorilla, maybe like a dad that just got home and he's upset with the kid or just bullying the kid, so he's holding a toy truck. And the more I say gorilla, the more I notice I say gorilla. But that wasn't fun enough for me, and honestly it was a little more sad than anything. So I started to think of more fun ideas, like maybe a gorilla riding one of those coin rides that you see outside of a grocery store that don't really exist much. Maybe more inside malls? And that's when an idea sparked me. And that's what I went with. Alright, so let's get right into this drawing. So like I said, I decided to go with a coin-operated little kiddie ride thing that you normally find like in a mall or something. I've talked about these things a few prompts ago. I don't really know where you find these anymore. I remember in the 90s you could see these outside of grocery stores all the time, which is exactly where I put this one in this illustration. I do recall seeing them inside of malls a few years ago, back when I lived in Tennessee, but to be honest, I don't really go to malls too much since I've moved to Canada, so I'm not really sure where you can find these, but I would assume a mall. Basically, it's just like a little quote-unquote ride. It's basically a chair that kind of wobbles to and fro when you put, I don't even know how much they cost these days. I was gonna say $0.25, but honestly they could cost $1 now. I think they usually look like vehicles or something, so that's what I went with. I made this vehicle that the gorilla is riding in a fire truck, and I put this gorilla in it, and I wasn't really sure when I started to design the gorilla. Did I want this gorilla to be a child? And because it's a gorilla, it's just very large because gorillas are large. So I wasn't really sure if I wanted to make this a child that was just too big for the ride, or if I wanted to make this an adult that just really wanted to ride this ride. Either way, I knew that the main situation here was going to be that there was a gorilla too big for the ride, either in size or age. Though looking back on it, I did draw an elephant mom and their kid in the background, and I'm pretty sure elephants are much bigger than gorillas, so that whole situation got thrown out the window from my stupidity. But anyways, I was thinking about having an audience watching in annoyance, or they were just sad that the gorilla was either taking up the ride when they wanted to ride, or that the gorilla was so big that they were destroying it. In the end, I kind of ended up going with both of these situations. I didn't make the ride fall apart too much, but I do have a few cracks here and there to suggest that the ride is falling apart under the weight of the gorilla. And just to push the idea that maybe someone else has been waiting to ride the ride, or that the gorilla is kind of doing something they shouldn't be. I have a mom looking very annoyed and the kid looking very sad. If you were paying attention while I was penciling this piece, I was actually drawing a whole crowd of animals, but they just looked kind of awkwardly shoved into the space and it wasn't really working for me. I was really hoping and looking forward to drawing a bunch of different animals and exaggerating their shapes and sizes and their faces and expressions. But a few animals in, I just noticed either I was drawing them too big and they were just fitting awkwardly into the space and kind of competing with the gorilla for the main stage. Whatever reason it was, I decided that it just wasn't turning out well and I didn't like it, so I decided to focus on just one set, I guess, of figures, or just like one animal and their kid. Even so, I do feel like I still drew the animals in the background a little bigger than I wanted to, but I still think they turned out pretty good, so it's fine, I guess. So when it came to coloring this particular piece, I was really feeling colorful for this one. If I was going to go with normal lifelike colors, the only color here would probably be the FIRETRUCK, and then the animals would be boring and gray. And as much as I love earthy tones and keeping things normal for the most part, I was really not feeling that this time. I really wanted to express some fun, colorful colors for this one. Obviously, color can play a huge part on narrative, as we have seen in my 2 watercolor challenge that completely changed the illustration. And as someone who wants to work towards illustrative work, I think playing with colors and just seeing what you can do with them to create a better narrative is fun and challenging. And I guess overall just more visually interesting. I knew that I wanted to make the FIRETRUCK red just to keep that, I guess, normal. Even in the animal world, they make their FIRETRUCKs red, apparently. So if I wanted to limit the color palette on this piece, I actually found it to be very easy and I had no trouble picking out colors. So gorillas are on the darker side, elephants are lighter. Technically they're both gray or black. But when it comes to turning elephants into cartoon characters, I guess pink or blue is the default. Because I was already going to make the FIRETRUCK red, so I didn't want to make the elephant also pink. And I did know that I wanted to make the gorilla on the darker side, so purple was going to be more obvious. I thought it was really easy just to make it a red, blue, and obviously a purple, because when you put red and blue together, you make purple illustration. So limiting the color palette on this piece was actually very natural, and it just turned out, I think, really well. I know what you're thinking. I don't like purple, but this is sort of a more blackish violet than it is a purple. The reason why I don't like purples is because they're usually very bright and just too vivid and like toxic to me. You can have a muted purple, obviously, but I find violets to be much more chill, I guess, and they're so much more easier to mute down with a little bit of black. So this gorilla is, if you want to call it, purple, but I do add just a little bit of black to it just to tone it down so it's not this very bright, in-your-face purple color. Does that make sense? Probably not. I say I don't like purple, but it's just specific purples I don't like. I also worked much more pastel than I normally have ever worked before, and honestly I had a lot of fun with it. Like I said, color can really bring a different mood to an illustration, so originally I was thinking about using more natural colors in the background. Or just in general, like I said, I normally work with more earthy tones. But I do think because I did work with a more pastel, bright, colorful palette for this illustration, it really just kind of brought up the mood a little bit. Even though there is some anger from the elephant, I think the focus on the gorilla being happy and having a fun time is, I guess, where I got the color palette from. Though honestly, now that I'm looking at it, if I really wanted to play with color palette and how colors can push emotions and feelings, it would have been really interesting to color the gorilla purple and the ride red and have everything about the gorilla and what the gorilla is doing colorful, but then having the background and the elephant, of course, and just everything that isn't involved with the gorilla a lot more desaturated or just in black and white, just to show that the gorilla is the happy one, but then everything else around the world is messed up in a way. Because obviously there is some hatred here with the elephant, and maybe I did pull a little Zootopia here. The elephant might be angry at the gorilla for no reason other than the fact that it's a gorilla. It's interesting how I can sit here and talk about my art and then discover different ways that I could have colored it instead of being in the moment. I didn't see that really good opportunity to play with black and white in the background, so that's definitely something that I think I want to play with in the future. Having part of an illustration colored and other parts black and white to push an idea seems really fun, and now I am super pumped about doing that with something in the future. Anyways, I was originally going to make the bricks in the background gray just to make sure that the characters did pop and were colorful, but then I thought, hey, why not make the bricks purple, pink, and blue too? And honestly, it just really brought this whole illustration together, and it's just really colorful and pastel, and I really liked it. And that is this prompt. Are y'all ready for some peel porn? Here we go. satisfying, wasn't it? All right, I'll see you guys at the end card. Again, last week's prompt was a live stream, so if you don't want to watch a 5-hour video, I getcha. But here are the entries from last week. We had Hedgehog and Hummingbird. Our first featured artist is a little bit of Evie Thing, who put so much detail and effort into this hedgehog jousting situation, and the hummingbirds are jousting with their beaks. This whole illustration is just so cute. Look at all of those little animals in the background. I loved it. Our next featured artist is Anatavjara. I am so sorry, I'm pretty sure I've butchered your name in the past. I just loved seeing this hummingbird dress up in its colors and that adorable hedgehog who is there to serve him and make any adjustments that he needs. It's just so cute. I love these little characters. The color difference between the two, this is my jam. Alright guys, thank you so much for joining in. I can't wait to see what you do for this week's prompt, and stay golden. Bye!